This is the Paltalk News Network.
The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not, no retribution, and where you should be subscribing to my Twitter feed, twitter.com/GaryBaumgarten, to be informed of things that you may or may not see, hear, or read in the mainstream media. And thanks to our great friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show. I also want to direct you to this new network's website, and a round of applause for Boaz Frankel, who has been working I can't tell you how many hours getting that site up and running as well as it is. It's paltalknewsnetwork.com. There are a number of great stories and analysis on that website that you definitely want to see. Did you hear, Alan, JC, about the judge, the justice of the peace, who denied an interracial couple a marriage license because he was afraid that if they had offspring, the children would be ridiculed?
Gary, first of all, I don't know why they call them justice of the peace if they marry people. I mean, to me, that just seems like such an oxymoron. But, yeah, that is quite a news story back there, especially here in the 21st century, particularly with a president who was biracial.
I'll tell you what, I think I'd rather be married by Elvis in the Elvis Chapel in Las Vegas than by this justice of the peace. He should be ashamed of himself. Anyway, that's one of the
pink Cadillac and all.
Yeah, pink Cadillac. Well, I'll take the pink Cadillac. You can have Aretha. How's that? We have a great story, actually two great stories of inspiration for you today. Our second guest is a young lady who is 15 years of age. Her name is Brigitte Berman, and she's actually the author of a book at the tender young age of 15. It's called Dorie Witt's Guide to Surviving Bullies, recognizing that bullying is a big problem in her age group. She decided to investigate and find out the best way for her peers to deal with bullies. Very inspirational. Also inspirational, as you will see in just a moment, is our first guest. Her name is Wendy Booker. She has climbed 6 of the 7 summits, with only Mount Everest left to conquer. She will attempt that this spring. She runs in marathons. Yes, that's inspirational enough. But what makes Wendy's story so amazing is that she has MS, multiple sclerosis, and yet she overcomes this, and she climbs, and she runs, and she is active. Far more active than a well-bodied individual such as your host. Wendy Booker, welcome to News Talk Online on the Paltalk News Network.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I understand that you will be addressing a huge symposium for over 400 MS patients and their families and caregivers at Mount Sinai Medical Center to talk about multiple sclerosis research and treatment. I'm a big supporter of research because you can't treat it without the research. I have a friend who has MS. He's been doing pretty well, very little thank God, breakdown of his muscular abilities. You wouldn't even know that he has MS, but of course he has to be cautious. I imagine your immune system, and that's my understanding, is something that has to be protected a little bit when you have MS. Were you always active before you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back in 1998, or did you just get this
like
new
I
lease
am
on
now.
life then? Nothing like
No,
you are now.
backing up and even addressing your friend with MS, the disease, thanks to the research, thanks to centers like the Mount Sinai, and the research money going into this, the disease, or the face of the disease, has really changed since 1993, and that's when the first therapies came out to manage the illness. And I have to give a lot of credit to the therapies for me in particular. I'm able to maintain my lifestyle and go out and do these great things, but also to tell people, I always say this ain't your mama's MS, because the therapies have so dramatically changed the face of the illness. So without the research dollars, and that's why I love speaking at events like this, because I really want to thank them for all that they've done for me to help me get to the top of my mountains.
And you're actually going to do this. You're actually going to climb Mount Everest. I mean, I have trouble climbing hills, and I'm able-bodied. I mean, how does somebody with MS do this?
Well, this is my second attempt on Everest. I was there last spring. I turned back on May the 19th from the summit because of weather. So I get to revisit it. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Sometimes knowing what the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, I guess. A lot of why I do it is more than the mountains and more than the summits, which are really secondary to my mission. My mission is to tell people with MS that they already have their mountain. Their mountain is MS, and now what do they choose to do with it? And maybe their mountain is going from their sofa to their mailbox, and it's using their wheelchair or their walker instead of their wheelchair. Maybe it takes them 10 times and they only get as far as their kitchen. It doesn't matter, because when they look back, not only they do it, they did it with MS. So I really just use these mountains as a metaphor. I'm just crazy enough to have to say, well, I better go try them.
Well, how much more difficult is it to train and then conquer a mountain, a summit, or a marathon when you have MS?
Part of it, though, it's difficult, but it's difficult for everybody. I get a lot of joy out of the fact that I pushed back at my diagnosis. A little bit of that, you can't catch me MS, or look what my body is capable of doing despite the MS. I'll never be fast. I'll never be first. I'm a back-of-the-pack runner. When I do a marathon, I tell everybody I see 20,000 rear ends, and the view never changes. And that's because of the MS. But the joy in doing, the joy in being able to say, despite the MS, I'm able to go out and have a life. And as I tell people, it's the times I'm doing those incredible things or anything when I'm not thinking about my MS is when I get my biggest strength. So if you put your mind into something and you get a little bit of what you were before you had the MS.
Did you immediately have this attitude when you were diagnosed in 1998, or did it take